Okay, good afternoon everyone. My name is Paul Cunningham. I'm an associate here at Smart Business Solutions. Today's webinar will be talking about business recovery and how to best plan to take your business out of the COVID-19 shutdowns and back to resuming to normal business, or at least the new normal. Many of you will have seen some of our past webinars on JobKeeper, cash flow forecasting and business continuity, to name a few. At Smart Business Solutions, we are here to help you grow your business and achieve your goals. I know we have a few familiar names on the attendee list, but just to quickly advise about the best way to use Zoom, please use the question box for any questions that you have rather than the chat, as this helps us manage the questions as we go, as some I will answer during the webinar and others we'll save to the end to discuss with Shannon and for you all to hear. And now I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our speaker for today's presentation, Shannon Smith. I'm sure many of you already know Shannon. Shannon is the founder and director of Smart Business Solutions. Shannon has been advising both small and large businesses for over 25 years and founded Smart 13 years ago. Prior to founding Smart, Shannon worked for one of the world's leading accounting firms in a job that took her around the world. Shannon is a founding board member of the Committee for Mornington Peninsula and has been recognised as a leading tax expert in being appointed to the Australian Government's Board of Tax Advisory Panel. Shannon is therefore very well placed to advise businesses on how to best plan for their business in these unusual times coming out of COVID. Welcome, Shannon.
Great. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for joining. I see a lot of familiar faces or names, attendees coming in. I know a lot of you have been attending these webinars that we've been doing over the last few months in what's been, I think for all of us, and I thought this was an appropriate sort of the day, crazy time that we've all been experiencing. And I guess if I ever looked, I'm always the optimist. If I want to look to the positive side of it, you know, smooth seas don't make the skillful sailors. I think coming out of COVID-19, we're going to see some really great, stronger businesses. I think we're going to come through this as stronger business owners. And so I really think there is that opportunity for us. I realise there will be some businesses that will struggle to get through potentially to the other side. There have been a lot of government stimulus packages that I think have really assisted businesses in getting through that side. So I do believe we've got to look to the positive and try and see, well, what are we learning about our businesses? And that's really going to be something that I'm going to be driving through today as I go through our presentation. We've talked in earlier webinars, and if you missed that one, it is on our website, business continuity. The real focus on our business continuity was to keep the wheels in motion, keep the business going. I know the message I was saying to a lot of you was put on your own mask first so that you're in a position to help others, help the business and keep you going. What I really wanted to talk about today is your business recovery plan. Now, is this the right timing for a business recovery plan? It's going to be very dependent on your business and the situation of where you're at the moment. So I did bounce back and forth with when would be the right time to run a business recovery planning kind of session, because I thought about it and I thought, well, okay, we wanted to keep the wheels in motion. That was our business continuity. But we can't just keep planning for our business to continue. We need to look at this and go, well, hang on a minute, is there an opportunity for us? Because I've seen some amazing things happen with businesses over the last few months that I never would have expected. And so I think that it's an opportunity to really say, I'm not just looking at survival here, I'm actually looking at how I'm going to thrive. I want to actually look at what my recovery plan looks like. So some of the things I'll go through today, and again, like we did with the JobKeeper, like we did with the business continuity, we will upload this webinar onto our website, and there will be some, basically some forms there that you can fill in yourself to fill in your own plan and go through how you might want to look at doing it. So what I want to go through today was closing the disconnect on it, the need for reinventing, looking at your budget, both personal and business, opportunities, vulnerabilities, and critical challenge. Again, these slides will be also on the website. Identifying and managing your risks. Look at some of your goals and actions, pulling everything together as a complete package. What might be your next steps? Well, how we can support you if you need, and then time for some any questions if you want to. So I'll start by kicking off on what do I mean by closing the disconnect? I mean, one thing, and we've seen it here on the peninsula, I've seen so many businesses come together and work collectively together. So I think if there's been a real positive that's come out of COVID-19, is just I guess the camaraderie or the community spirit around businesses collaborating together to get to a common goal. So I really think the moment, if you're looking at what are some of the stages, start making sure you're closing the disconnect. I'm not talking about technology, because I think a lot of us jumped onto that and these online type meetings. What I'm really talking about is, how can you now work with potentially other businesses, work with your advisors, like work with us as accountants, look at your banker, you know, your legal. I mean, who's been on the phone now to their banker more than they've ever spoken to them to help get them to help you get through this time? Is it your HR advisor? You've probably never spoken to them as much as well. So really having a look at all these resources that maybe you haven't been connecting with them as much on a regular basis in the past, but how can you now, how much extra knowledge have you got now in a better position you're in to be able to actually come out on the other side because of that connection you've had? And this may even be other business owners as well, reaching out to other peers. So I really want to look at having a look at how you can actually together come up with a far better outcome when we're coming through on the other side. I mean, I look at our side, and I guess our core purpose of what we're doing with clients is I want to be able to educate clients and be able to put you in a position to make better choices and have that ability to have that choice. And I guess that's one of the reasons why we run these webinars. I often joke that I like to get you in a position to make a lot more profits, etc., because it gives me great tax problems to resolve. But really trying to look at those that have helped you in these last few months, or those resources that you've really reached out to, seeing how you now can collectively work with them in this recovery, because we're not talking about just resolving that issue and that business continuity and putting a band-aid on that. We're talking about, well, now actually it's a new world that we're coming in. So how can I keep working with these people and to really help your business to business to get through on the other side from a recovery, but also actually really thrive. I think there's a huge opportunity. I was thinking about, during these types of times, this has really forced a lot of businesses to think outside the square. Now, we all talk about that we're going to do that, but I really think what's happened across the globe, and the ironic thing about it all is this has happened to everyone. And I guess I was nearly at the point, if there was one more person that was going to say, hey, we're in all this together, I was going to really scream at one point when everyone kept saying we're in this together. But what we are seeing is that we've all been actually put in the same position. This happened to every single business, and each business is going to be impacted in different ways. So I looked at it as mainly bringing it down to 4 main opportunities to reinvent your business. And there were things that were actioned and developed in such a short period of time that I'm sure a lot of you were probably surprised that as a business owner, you were able to pull that off in such a period of time that you would never have done had we not faced this kind of crisis situation. So I saw 4 opportunities. So I'll go through the 4 opportunities I was really looking at. And if you maybe, take notes or have a thought about what you've seen other businesses do well and how you might be able to adapt it. The first opportunity was really looking at the need to innovate and being pushed into a situation where we need to innovate. We saw a great example during this whole pandemic was a company that used to sell travel pillows. Obviously, there was not much demand for a while after that. They immediately turned to start selling hair clippers, because all of a sudden people weren't going to the hairdressers, they were at home. So trying to think of, well, what is it and how can we change? So what is the need to innovate? What could you innovate in your business? And that might be introducing a new product line, a new service, or just doing something different to what you've done in the past. On our side, it was actually doing these webinars. We hadn't done a webinar before all of this happened. We talked about it, but we just hadn't got around to it. So actually, jumping in and running one of these webinars was one of the ways we innovated. We did move towards Zoom meetings. I think that will stay partially when we all come back to this new norm. The next area of opportunity was really the need to re-engineer. And I think this pandemic has pushed us all to really reinvent and re-engineer and look at what you're doing, look at how you're doing, how you're actually undertaking, in our case, maybe our service offerings, how we're undertaking that, and how can we potentially do it completely differently and re-engineer what we're doing. The example I love, which we've all seen this on the peninsula, is just the way we've gone from, you know, breweries, distilleries, who 1 minute they're serving alcohol, the next minute, you know, we have hand sanitizer coming out. I mean, what a great idea. And that's absolute re-engineering. So what is it that you're doing, and how could you potentially re-engineer? Look at what others are doing. I actually think that we're going to look back on this time and realize that a lot of innovation and process changes came out of this. I mean, I guess one thing not to re-engineer was Trump's, I don't know, was his suggestion of everyone having, what was it, Clorox or something like that to get rid of the virus or something. But having a look at how you might be able to re-engineer your business. The third way to reinvent your business was really, I was looking at the way in which to adapt or change the way in which you deliver your products, deliver your services. So how can you do potentially something different? One that I saw on the Peninsula, which was just an amazing way that they changed, was the Peninsula, I think it's Peninsula or it's in Rosebud, the dance studio. So, you know, one day to another, their dance studio was closed down. And I was listening, the Committee for Mornington Peninsula had Laura Washi talking about marketing, and she was working with them from a marketing. They adapted their dance lessons to online paid dance lessons. They did a few free, and then they did online paid dance lessons. So all of a sudden, they could have been closed for a few months. They actually built up. Now, as a result of that, going forward, they're apparently going to have two offerings. You can come in and go to the dance studio, or you can do online dance lessons and dance programs. So it's a great ability to adapt. I saw other situations like I think there was a beautician that was also offering products to do a facial. So instead of buying the service of a facial from them because they were closed, you could come in and buy what would be all the products required for a facial with a step-by-step guide as to how to do your own facial. So these are opportunities on how you can adapt to your environment, and then actually see whether these adaptations could be something that you maybe want to keep going in the future. And I think this is what's been a great outcome of what's happened to us all in this last period of time. And another one is then the need, I guess I called it, to widen your lane. What is the opportunity? So you look at it, and restaurants, I mean, who is enjoying all of this amazing takeaway food that we can get? Takeaway food to me used to be potentially a pizza or something like that. And then sometimes I just wouldn't bother. I just think, oh, well, I'll just quickly cook something up. And now you can get all of these amazing restaurants will actually have pickup or takeaway or delivery food that they didn't. And I know a lot of them are now going to keep doing that because they were forced into a situation where they had to learn how to, you know, they couldn't serve in the way they could do. They could still produce the food. They could now put it into a takeaway, but they couldn't get to their customers the same way they used to. They had to basically adapt and go down a different path. So really having a look at how can you change the way in which what you're doing from your offerings. And so really looking at during this period of, have a look at what you could do to innovate, what's been the re-engineering that you've maybe done, adapting, and then number 4, the widening your lane. What are your other market opportunities that might be available? And so with these four ideas in mind, start to think about what can you do so that you're not just going to get through to the other side, which I hear a lot of people talk about getting through. I'm looking at it, I want to smash through to the other side. I want to thrive. I want to see how I can really grow when I get through to the other side. So that's what you're really looking at a business recovery. We're not looking at just surviving to the other side. Are there opportunities to actually also increase our business and get to a point where we're not just surviving, but we I guess you could say thrive on the other side. So in looking at that, as I've always talked about with your business, your business the business is there to basically serve you, not the other way around. You're not there just to serve your business. So I want to start with, if you have a look at your own personal budget. Now, a lot of people, what I've heard is they actually spent a lot less money when they were in lockdown. Now, what was it? Now, looking at your personal budget, what was it you were able to save on, and what could you potentially keep saving on? There'll be other aspects that you will start needing to spend again now you're coming out. But having a look at your personal budget now, as a lot of people have been commenting that they did save a lot more during the lockdown. Update your personal budget, because often we use the benefit of, or the reason you need a personal budget is when I'm working with clients on a business plan and also on their cash flow, I like to start with the end in mind. What is it that you need to get from a personal perspective from your business? What do you need your business to produce for you, or the income level, so that you can basically thrive as a family? You can pay all the bills that you have on your side as well. So looking at your personal budget and then trying to realize, okay, what can we actually save on? What can we do differently? And that becomes your starting point for your revised business budget. Because starting from the bottom up, you're wanting to get a certain amount of income from the business. And I always say to people, you don't want to just get a wage from the business. You want to get an extra amount on top of your wage, because just a wage, you probably don't want the stress of running a business. So you might as well work for someone. So you want to get not only your wage from the business, you want to get profit on top of that, that rewards you for the risk of owning a business. So now's the time. The world has changed. I think we've had obviously a radical change. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next few months. None of us have a crystal ball, and I wish I had the answer to it. I'd love to. I'm always asking everyone's opinion, because I'm really trying to gauge where we're at. I always feel good after speaking with all of my clients, and then I turn the news on at night, and it's quite miserable. So probably note to self not to do that. The biggest thing I think a lot of businesses have learned from this experience is that they didn't have enough of a war chest. They didn't have enough of a cash in their business that would enable them to get through some of these challenges should some of their revenue drop off. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I'm seeing a lot of businesses are going to take away and fix going forward is building up that war chest. So in working backwards, I would be looking at, what do you want or expect from your business as an income level? Now, I always use that as the starting point. And in addition, what do we want to start putting aside in that war chest so that we have that cash buffer, so we don't face this type of situation? Because this may have been a pandemic now, there will be other things that happen during your business life cycle that are going to have that kind of impact. So starting from the bottom, looking at, well, I actually want to increase the cash. If I want to increase the cash in my business, and maybe that's having a look at, I want to have 1 month's worth of expenses, I want to have 2 months worth of expenses. What do you want to increase your cash by in your bank account to start building up that war chest for you? Then we look at other cash movements. How can I build up, free up cash by reducing your debtors? Because the debtors are basically owing you money, so you're kind of lending it to them interest free, aren't you? How can we reduce the debtors' time? And then stock, again, how can we increase our turnovers of our stock, so we're only holding the stock for the minimum period that we need to be able to sell it? We're not having all of our money invested in that. Also, how can we maybe negotiate better terms with our suppliers so that we're not having to pay, so far in advance? So looking at other opportunities to free up some of that cash movement to give us the money back for us to be able to put in our bank as our war chest. Looking at loan principal, when you're doing a budget, you want to look at it, you're looking at, how do I pay for my loan principal amounts? Because for tax purposes, we only take up the interest expense. We don't take up the full principal, but that's going to have an impact on your cash flow. Then any asset purchases that you may be having, and whether they're financed or not. Drawings, which are not included in wages. So if you are taking wages from the business, you'll have then the drawings in addition, but the drawings is maybe something like your dividends that you're taking as that extra. Or if you're not taking any wages from the business, this will be, what money are you taking from the business to survive on personally? Then we get to our net profit after tax. So all of this is kind of after our tax. We have our tax, our net profit before tax. We look at our overheads. What can you do now that you've gone through what we've gone through? So we've all had a radical wake up call with a lot of things. What can you now do with your overheads what do you really not need anymore? What can you change? I know there's been a lot of talk about, will everyone still have office spaces? I think they probably will, but look, I think some businesses will decide they don't need an office space. I know we're still in an office space and I'm back in the office, but having a look at your overheads to see what is it that you can trim from your overheads. And then your gross profit percentage is really what you would normally get. If you're selling products, you would have your product, you would know what you can potentially price it at, and that would be your gross margin. If you're a service provider, you'll have a gross margin percentage. So it's working back up to work out then what is your target revenue that you're aiming to achieve. This doesn't have to be a masterpiece, even if you just do this either on a monthly, or you might do it for the year and then break it down to monthly, but really trying to get yourself a plan as to, and get some more control over your numbers so that you understand where your expenses are going and what your cash flow is going to be. There is also, to highlight on that as well, actually I'll jump on, that links into my next one. To highlight on that is what to measure and how to measure it. And there is, those of you that are using Xero, there is a new business dashboard in Xero. Now, if you go to our website, now Xero videos, Paul has actually prepared a video on how to use the business dashboard in Xero. It's fantastic. It actually gives you a lot about what your cash flow is going to be, where your profit's at for this month, and how it's all tracking. So Paul's done a video just on that to go through it, and it's going to give you some really good statistical information. But trying to work out what is it that you need to measure and how are you going to measure it. So we're in a completely different situation than we were before, and so you do need to look at the KPIs you've had in the past and whether there's a need to update those KPIs. Now, when I talk about KPIs, I'm talking about what is it that enables you to measure the success of your business? How is it? Is it number of potential calls that you have each week? How many of those calls convert into jobs that need to be done? So thinking about what are your key performance areas that will actually lead to financial output for you as you're going through, and probably limiting them to 5 key performance indicators or key value drivers on what you might be looking for. If I look at it, then now is a good time to then also look at what your opportunities are. Look at what other businesses have done in the way that they've adapted, and see where the opportunity might be for you, about going back to, again, back to some of those earlier principles I talked about, but what are some of the opportunities, and jot those opportunities down, because this is going to get you, you're doing a business recovery plan. It's more detailed, to be honest, than a business plan, because what we're really trying to do is actually say, okay, we've been through a radical change here. What can I do differently to be able to get out the other side and be, really thriving? So what are some of the opportunities that are available for you? I know during this time we had some clients who weren't online, and all of a sudden the opportunity that they had to go online, now they're selling online, and now they realize there's an even bigger opportunity online as well. If I look at then, what are some of the vulnerabilities or the most critical challenges that you may have experienced, and how are you going to plan to overcome those? So what are some of the risks that you've got? I think the big unknown for a lot of us at this point is the talk of whether there'll be another drop in the economy because we kind of spiked back very quickly. And there's a lot of talk about that. Is that in September, when we have the JobKeeper finishing up, a lot of people will be back to paying their mortgage payments? Are we going to see a drop there? I'm often talking about, are we going to see a pothole, or are we going to fall off the cliff? None of us know. No one knows the answer. I think the government are trying to maintain, or trying to work on economic stimulus so that we can keep the economy going and don't have that fall off the cliff. But I guess none of us have that crystal ball. So being able to take the time now to understand your vulnerabilities, what might be a risk for you, and what will be some of your most critical challenges in that. So putting together and identifying the risks. And again, as I'm always saying, you don't have to create a masterpiece when you're doing this. but really trying to have a look at what are my risks. So I put down that, create a risk register. Really, it's just a risk list, but you can see the different levels of risk of it's almost certain, likely to happen. What would be, if it's almost certain to happen, what would the consequence be? So if it's going to be a significant consequence, so it's trying to get you to focus on your areas in this business plan to help manage these risks. So have a look around your government, which is basically around poor planning, keeping your policies up to date, poor discipline around working on the business. So really making yourself responsible for your business, not just working in it, but responsible for working on your business. Look at the leadership side of it, risks around, we'll look at communication, look at reporting, team morale. I mean, there's been a lot of changes going on for a lot of people. So really trying to have a look how you can proactively manage that and what are some of your risks on it. Look at your products and services. What are your risks around lack of adaptation or innovation? What might be some of those risks? Operational around suppliers. Are you going to have some risks around your suppliers, your supply chain? What about some of your key customers? How are they going to go in getting through this? So what are some of your risks around that? Marketing. The craziest thing I see with any downturn is the fact that people turn off their marketing. Now is not the time to be turning off your marketing. Now is the time to be making sure, even if there is a delay in people maybe buying from you at the moment, maybe their funds are tight on it, but you need to be still front of mind. So the marketing, you might need to adapt what you're doing, but now is not the time to cut on marketing and go into hibernation. And I do see that the minute we have a slowdown in the economy, everyone goes into hibernation, but now is honestly not the time for doing that. Sales, is there an opportunity for you to adapt the way in which you're doing your sales, and what is the risk for you if you're, is it poor training, risk of not being able to do a smooth cart, I guess, on your website. But have a look what might be some of the risks, and then look at your finance. How did you find this situation now? Is there a risk of having insufficient cash flow, poor financing? What other opportunities out there are there that can assist you on it? HR, what are your risks around HR? Now, as we all go back to the workforce, what are some of the requirements around that and the risks? I know there's been a number of businesses that have experienced which is a fair work issue, but not a great issue, where some of these employees do not want to go back to work because they've been getting JobKeeper and haven't had to work. And what are some of the challenges around that? Because that's really coming back to your Fair Work Australia type situation, that the subsidy is for the employer. They should be coming back to work. So I've heard a few clients have had that problem. Looking at your admin side, what are your risks of not automating some of those processes? And then the technology, just what are some of your risks? So by identifying a lot of your risks, you're going to be in a stronger position should any of these risks actually happen. You're going to be in a stronger position to help resolve those and address those ones. So what are some of the goals and actions that you've got? So you pulled all your risks together. Now, what's your plan to help address each of those risks? So look at your goals, your actions, and your responsibilities to actually overcome those. So for those of you that have gone through the business planning webinar before or face-to-face, when we were having the face-to-face, we will go back to face-to-face. When you've gone through the business planning, we often put out action items, but the business recovery is going to have a lot more detail than a business plan, because you really need to get down to the detail of each of your different departments within your business. Even if it's just your business and you are wearing all 10 hats, you need to look at each of your different areas of your business. Maybe it's the sales part, marketing, finance. You need to go into each of those, and what are going to be some of your actions that you've actually put that need to happen to help mitigate those risks. So should any of those risks happen over this next period of time, you're in a well-equipped position as to how you're going to deal with those or mitigate or avoid them actually even happening. So pulling it all together into a complete package. So if I go back over what I talked about on, you've got your personal budget. So we need to work out, what do you need personally? Now, there's many people who put their mortgage on hold. Put your mortgage on hold. We're working from home. Or we all enjoyed lunches at home instead of having to go out. But you've done all of this, and now all of a sudden your personal budget is going to change if those mortgages start back up again and you've got those expenses. How are you going to manage it? So you really need to bring your personal budget in, have a look at your risks. How are you going to manage your risk? The more, and be open with your risk, the more risks that you can potentially identify, the more you're going to be in a better position to manage those and avoid surprises. And this all comes together in, I guess, like a business recovery plan, for lack of a better word. You're basically saying, look, I want to not only recover, I want to thrive, but to be able to recover and then thrive, you need to understand all your vulnerabilities and to be able to look at those. Look at a business forecast, because the world has changed in what we're going through and how things, what your financial position might be. Do you have a rent wave at the moment where you're only paying half your rent, and that's going to change going forward as well? Maybe it's an updated organisational chart if your people have changed. Maybe it's even a focus on who's doing what. You've had some of that, and potentially finance if you're going to need some of that. So I think there's just been a lot of changes that you need to pull this all together. And it's being, I guess my big messages on it is being prepared and having that that documented. So we will have a template for you that you can download from our website. I guess I looked at this one from an electrical perspective. Look at a summary and say, okay, what actually happened to us during this time? What did we do well? What did we not do very well? Have a bit of a summary and be honest with yourself of what's gone on in the business and where are we at today, and what might we be able to, what might be the next step. So putting that kind of summary, I would do some bullet points on the executive summary first, go through and fill the rest of this out, and then go back to the executive summary. It's a bit like when you're writing an essay, you have your introduction, you might have a few points, do the rest, then come back and go back to your introduction again. But you really want to summarize it then. Having a look at going back to your personal spending, because your business is there to serve you, not the other way. So we really need to understand what is your personal budget. The number of clients I've spoken to who have said, I haven't even looked at my personal budget in such a long time. They just get the money that comes from the business. But I think the shutdown, I have been amazed at the number of people who have actually said, I've only been going to the supermarket once a week. All of a sudden, I know how much I spend at the supermarket once a week. Whereas before that, they may have been going a few times a week and never really paid attention. So looking at your monthly personal spending, what does that mean annually? So look at the business owner. Do we need finance? What potentially would we like to finance? Remembering there is that asset write-off at the moment, which has been extended until December 31. So there is time on your side unless you need a tax deduction before June 30. Then looking at your budget, your break-even analysis, and working backwards, as I talked about, looking at what do you need as a family, and then working back up to say, what are the overheads? What am I going to trim on my overheads where I can? The gross profit margin may or may not be a known number to you. We can always assist you if you need help to work that out. But going back up and working out what is it then that is our budget and our break-even analysis. And I think what I have learned through this time is that clients now want to understand their numbers even more than they've ever understood them before, because this has really forced them to do that. The clients have been more going into zero than they ever have before. And once you've got the profit, the profit's what you're paying tax on, but we also need to consider the cash flow, because you can have a really profitable business that doesn't have the cash flow, and that can go broke because of that. So we really need to focus on cash is king and building up, as you can see in here, trying to build up that war chest so that you're not in this position. And I think if you think back to our parents and their parents, they all had war chests. I think life's been great for the last, nearly 30 years. We haven't, as a society, really built up this war chest. And this war chest is not just about a business war chest, it's also a personal war chest as well, in making sure that you have that buffer of money saved up as well. Those KPIs I talked about, this will be different depending on your business, but even looking at, is it wanting to get paid quicker? your stock turnovers, looking at your gross profit margin, maybe trying to achieve a certain weekly sales level or revenue targets. Maybe it's a monthly, maybe it's a meetings that you've got. Look at your opportunities. So what opportunities, and this is just an electrical one as an example, but grow the industrial side, restructure, residential. This is a hypothetical example, combination of lots of little things in my head. So it's just, it's not a client, but it's just a hypothetical. But trying to look at different areas to say, well, what are our opportunities that we have? Maybe there's an area, I'm sure those, the breweries and distilleries never thought that they would be doing hand sanitizer, and maybe that's something that they continue to do. So then looking at your vulnerabilities, maybe the cash flow might be, what about losses, weakness in, and these are just examples here. Morale is an important one at the moment. And then looking at what are some of the critical challenges, so that you're really honest with yourself and you can put yourself in the best position for going forward. This is where we then come down to, okay, we've established where we're at now. So let's have a look at and I went through those departments earlier where we're looking at the risk. What are the risks? So we look at the risk. What are the goals that we want to do? And then let's put them down into 90-day goals and then 90-day action. And who's going to do it and by when are they going to do it? So that you've really put yourself in to a situation of being able to action these items and look on the marketing, look at sales, operations. So looking at those different areas, if you go back to earlier in my slide, and this is where it's a bit different to when I've done the business plans, is we haven't always gone down to the different aspects of your business, to the nitty gritty on each of the different areas of your business. I think now that we're in this business recovery type stage, it's like someone's ripped a Band-Aid off, and we've really got to now look at all the different areas of the business and make sure we can address each of those, I guess, for going forward and put us in a better place, in going forward in the future. I guess when I look at this, I look at it as I often say, but to do nothing isn't an option. I think we can't keep staying in the business continuity and just keeping ourselves afloat. The reason for that, in September, if you are getting JobKeeper now, in September, that's gone. We need a plan today for that to be gone in September. Being the goal that I want clients to be really focused and understand their risks and really be focused, so that when we get to September, my clients only feel a little pothole when that JobKeeper goes away. We just have a little dip as a pothole where they don't fall off the cliff, because we've been planning for it. We've been planning for getting, if possible, that extra cash flow to start building up that war chest. We've adapted the expenditure. We've looked at different things. I know myself, I've gone through all of our overheads and gone, okay, what can I save on here and there, and see where we can trim those types of expenses. So I'm really, doing nothing, I think, really isn't an option. It does concern me, the businesses that do nothing will get to September when they lose their JobKeeper. They potentially have to start paying their finance leases, and all of a sudden they wake up and go, wow, I can't survive this. I want you to start doing this plan, looking at the risks. When I get to September and I lose my JobKeeper, what does that mean to me? How am I going to build up? What revenue do I need to build up by then to be able to keep this going and keep paying those staff? How do I do this? So that you plan it in advance and we don't have a surprise. As I mentioned before, put on your oxygen mask first so that you can help others. You need to look at your personal budget. You need to look at that so that you can then know what you need from the business and how can you make the business get that for you. Make a plan and then focus on what you can do, and yell out if you need some help and if you want someone to assist you on any of that. What we've done before, I'm happy to help people in this especially this situation. If you want to have a chat, a complimentary meeting, I'm happy to have a chat. You can have a chat on Zoom if you want to do so what we're going to offer, if you want to, we'll give you the template for the business recovery review. What I would suggest is you can go back through the slides, maybe even the webinar, but have a look at it and have a go yourself. I'm happy to have a 15-minute chat if you've prepared it and send it on to me, and I can have a look and give you some, hey, have you thought of this? Have you thought of these aspects? If you want us to sit and fill it out together, and that'll normally take about 2 hours, so I've discounted that amount. We can have that business planning session. If you need it with a finance application, because I know a lot of people are looking at it from a finance perspective, there'll just be a bit of extra work in that because of the finance side. But happy to have a chat with anyone. Paul or Daniel can have a chat as well. If you want to have a go, do the business recovery, review yourself, work out how you're going to get your business through this, and then we can sit there and really question, raise, have you thought about various different issues, so that you've got a plan, so that we're not going to get to September and all be surprised at what happens at that time. We've got to run up now, and I think now's the opportunity to start doing it. And it'll be different in each business, but really trying to work out when's going to be the right time for you to look at doing that. So I'll open it up now to any questions, if we've got any questions from anyone at the moment.
Yeah, Shannon, we do have a few questions. Feel free to put them in the chat or in the Q&A if you do have any additional questions, preferably the Q&A. So one question here. So in preparing the budgets for the plan, should I prepare more than one budget? So should I prepare 2 budgets for the, say, worst case, best case scenarios?
Yeah, look, you actually could, and like you say, Paul, it is a scenario. You could actually prepare the budget based on I guess your best case scenario, or how you're expecting it, but maybe working out also the worst case scenario to work out, in a sense, I guess, what is that break even point, or what is that, keeping the doors open point.
Yep.
To work on that. And if you do have challenges around, that break even point or keeping the doors open, do reach out. We are not liquidation accountants ourselves. We don't deal with those, but there is some local that we can refer you to. What I mean by that is they are actually really good, if someone is having a challenge from that side, but they are actually really good at looking at ways of mitigating your risk and working around that. But I would do I think that's a good opportunity to do the best case and worst case scenario. Yeah.
Similar type question, I guess, but how often should you look at the budget and the business plan, given the changes that are coming so quickly and we just don't know what's coming from day to day, particularly from the government? How often should you re-look at it and maybe adjust, or is it just set in stone?
No, I actually reckon that you're nearly going to be looking at it. I mean, it's probably, people are looking at zero every day. I would be having it out actually fresh all the time at the moment. You've got to be adapting it. And this is, if there's any positive that's going to come out of this, it's going to be the fact that a lot of people are going to be a lot more in tune with their numbers, because we're literally being forced to from, clients. So it's something we're getting so many changes. We don't like that it keeps changing, from the government, but I think you need to be continually looking at your numbers. Yeah.
Yep. Another question from Brendan. We're seeing our customers taking a lot longer to pay. Should we offer discounts for earlier payments?
Yeah, with that, you really need to have a look at what does that discount mean to the cost of money coming for yourself. So what's the cost to you of giving that discount? So that if it depends on your margins. You don't want to give away a discount that actually erodes a lot of your profit, but cash is king at the end of the day. So getting that cash flow in, if there's any other incentives that you can do, it is a priority. Cash is definitely king at the moment, but we do need to be making a profit.
Yeah, absolutely. Our cash flow, sorry, I'm just rereading the question. Our cash flow has now become reliant on government stimulus. Do you think they are likely to continue through to September or beyond September? We keep seeing different media reports on that, I know. And how can we best plan to come off these payments and survive?
Yeah, that is the crystal ball. I don't know factually, so I'm just going on my thoughts. I would say that they're not going to extend it beyond September. That would be if I was a betting person, that's what I would be betting. I would also be saying that I believe July 23rd, they've announced that July 23rd, they will be announcing some changes to the JobKeeper. I suspect that they will be saying that if your April, May, June, for your June BAS has not reduced by 30% from your prior year, I feel like that they may turn off JobKeeper for August and September, not for July, because you would have already paid people. That's just my own expectation.
Yeah.
yeah, I could be wrong on that. As far as cash planning around it, that comes back, I guess, to the comment on trying to work out, well, that's the cash flow we're getting now. How can we budget? How can we plan? How can we start putting away a bit of a war chest so that, you know, really the cash flow boost that we got from the government with your PAYG and now, in a sense, of JobKeeper, this has really given us an opportunity. It's like the government's given us an opportunity to help try and keep the doors open, obviously, but if possible, build up a bit of a war chest for it as well.
Yeah, certainly. So the last question we've got here, unless anyone wants to quickly add one. So our bank has given us loan repayment holidays automatically. Should we use these holidays and build up the cash for our business, or should we still look to make the payments if we are able to?
Okay, so that depends really on the loan that you've got. So there are banks that have automatically done that. If it's a home loan, I'd nearly be saying if you can afford to pay it, keep paying it, because the way in which the interest accumulates is not going to be the greatest outcome. It's going to keep accruing and it compounds.
Yep.
If it's a finance lease, what I understand from a lot of equipment finance, car finance leases, what I've seen on clients is they've actually paused the payments and just added an extra, say, 3 months on the end or 6 months on the end. So there's no financial cost. It really is a pause. Then, hey, use that opportunity. Is it 3 months or 6 months to take that money and build it up as your war chest, build up your cash supply. So just have a look at what your situation is. So if it's your home mortgage, if you can afford to pay it, keep doing it, because the compounded interest is, you know, is going to keep going up. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That's all the questions we have, Shannon. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks everyone. I know a lot of you have probably met, obviously, with myself, with Paul, and then also Daniel. If you've got any questions, feel free to get in touch. We will put this recording up on our website. We'll put up the templates as well. If you do want to give us a call to actually go through it and just bounce ideas. But I guess our goal on it all is really, you know, the goal is I want to help clients get to September and just feel it like a bit like a pothole in the road, that we don't have the falling off the cliff when the JobKeeper payments stop and maybe they're starting to pay their mortgages. So you need to start planning now so that we don't have that situation later. But thanks everyone for joining.